The heat is on. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Charity disaster. Reputational disaster. Professional disaster. Financial disaster. It's all coming together.
At war over money. They need $10 million now.
Charles has made it very clear that he wants Harry back. You know, we saw it in Harry's book. Don't make my life a misery, but don't make my final years a misery, boys. Charles's dearest wish is to be reconciled with his son.
Tom Bower has spent years examining this marriage, and not long ago, he summed up his view in a way that caught a lot of attention. According to Bower, as long as Harry remains married to Meghan, the idea of the couple moving back to Britain is simply untenable, not difficult, not unlikely, completely untenable. And behind that one striking word is a number that helps explain why this situation keeps getting more complicated.
Of course, there are constant bust-ups, I guess is the point that I'm making. And of course, there is tension over Harry's desire to spend time in the United Kingdom, but Meghan knows she needs to come back too. She's going to have to turn back on her word, and that is for financial reasons.
Bower has estimated that the lifestyle Harry and Meghan have built in California costs anywhere from $3 to $6 million every single year just to maintain. That figure sits at the center of everything we're about to discuss.
They need $3 million just to survive each year, just to meet their minimum security needs. So I really think we can't frame this in any other way other than a pay for play, a desperate, grab for cash. And I think that just comes down to it, that they really need the bucks.
Here's the picture that several royal commentators and biographers have been describing, and it's important to keep it in mind as this story unfolds. By many accounts, Harry appears eager to reconnect with life in Britain. Bower describes someone frustrated with his current position, feeling a loss of influence in the UK, and finding that his standing in America may not be what he once expected. Meghan, meanwhile, is often portrayed as having little interest in returning to Britain. One seems drawn toward London, while the other remains firmly committed to Montecito.
As far as people are concerned, we were living at a palace, and we were in a cottage.
We were living on palace grounds.
He would just hit his head constantly in that place because he's so tall.
And according to some of the people who have followed this relationship most closely, the biggest obstacle may not be the palace, and it may not even be King Charles. They suggest the real challenge lies much closer to home. Now that's a major claim, and it shouldn't be accepted based on one person's opinion alone.
It's very interesting, which I was surprised by, and comes up early in the Betrayal book, is when a very, very famous member of the British establishment, really a household name, is asked by the Queen to explain to Meghan before the wedding what life will be like. And that person goes to visit her every 3 or 4 weeks in Kensington Palace, and after the third and fourth visit tells the Queen that Meghan has absolutely no intention of staying in Britain after the wedding, and there's a lot of trouble ahead. Of course, it was too late to do anything, but they saw it long before that glorious day in June, and I'm afraid that that is her problem. She is very calculating and very ruthless and very self-promoting, but she's taken on more in the end than she can chew.
What makes this story so interesting is not simply that Tom Bower said it. It's that other commentators have begun raising remarkably similar questions. Keep watching, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why some people believe Bower's warnings from years ago are starting to look more significant than ever. First, let's talk about the money, because nearly every road in this story seems to lead back to finances. Harry is certainly not struggling financially, and it's only fair to acknowledge that from the start. When he turned 30 in 2014, Harry reportedly inherited around £10 million from the estate of his mother.
Harry and Meghan want to destroy. They might want to be there, but they want to destroy. That's why they're going ahead. That's why they're putting on smiley faces. That's why they're doing all sorts of things. But I don't believe in what they want to do at all. I think they're crooks and nasty people to try and win.
Then, on his 40th birthday in September 2024, reports suggested he received another substantial payout, said to be around £8 million, from a trust established years earlier by the Queen Mother for her great-grandchildren. So Harry entered his California chapter with significant inherited wealth behind him. But there's something those inheritance headlines rarely mention.
No one would ever believe it.
No one would ever believe it.
No matter how large a fortune may seem, money can disappear surprisingly quickly when expenses keep piling up year after year. There is the Montecito property to maintain. There are ongoing security costs after the British government stopped covering that expense. And when annual spending potentially reaches millions of dollars, even a sizable inheritance begins to face serious pressure over time. Then there are the staff costs and the legal battles. And unlike many royal rumors, these figures are part of the public record.
And now Harry is suddenly woken up and gone, oh, actually, yeah, you've got to have this stuff called money. It's this folded paper that's in your trousers, and that's how you get stuff. And I didn't really know that until I left England and stopped being a member of the royal family. So Meghan's told me I need to get more of this folding paper, which has got Dad's face on it. And we could also get some of the American paper, which is green, and that's got like a big S on it with lines down the middle. Anyhow, Meghan said she wants more of this colourful paper, and that we're running out of the colourful folding paper that's in your trousers. Yeah.
Court documents showed that Harry's case involving the publisher of the Daily Mail had legal budgets of roughly $4 million approved for each side. Reports also indicated that his earlier settlement involving the publisher of The Sun exceeded £10 million. These are not numbers pulled from tabloid gossip. These are figures that pass through the court system. That's why, when Tom Bower estimates that the Sussexes may need between $3 and $6 million a year to maintain their current lifestyle, he's not necessarily describing some dramatic fantasy. He's looking at the numbers and asking the same question many people would ask sitting around their own kitchen table.
He hasn't got a clue. It's a catastrophe. They need $10 million now. Because you know as well as I do, folks, that you've got to have a buffer. You cannot be down to your last dollar. And yes, there are some savings. There's a little bit of money from the books fair. He got 20 million for that. There is the inheritance from Diana and from the Queen Mother, who is the mother of the late Queen Elizabeth. He got millions when he turned 30.
At the end of the day, money coming in has to stay ahead of money going out. If it doesn't, problems eventually appear. And one challenge with celebrity income is that it often arrives in waves. There isn't always a predictable paycheck landing every month. Instead, there can be a major deal, followed by a long stretch of waiting for the next opportunity.
Harry keeps arguing that they need taxpayer-funded security, and you're sitting back looking at Meghan dripping in gold, posting pictures of her closet, posting pictures of her children, saying, are you not increasing the odds of somebody targeting you by putting your wealth and your children and your home on full display?
Then comes the hope that another big agreement arrives before the last one fades from memory. The Netflix deal helped create the impression of financial security during the early years of their California life. But even major contracts eventually end, and new opportunities are never guaranteed. That's where the pressure starts building. When a lifestyle costs millions of dollars every year, it becomes difficult to simply scale everything back overnight. The expenses keep moving, and someone has to keep the machine running. This is also where the money story and the marriage story begin to overlap in a very interesting way.
And that's what happens if you marry a guy who's not that bright and who has no discernible talent and whose only value are two things: inherited cash, which he didn't earn, and selling the family secrets. Well, both of those sources of income look like a busted flush, and the cost of their lives is extraordinary. You're looking at $3-4 million a year, easy. $3-4 million, potentially $5 million. The mortgage alone on their Montecito mansion is $500,000. And don't forget, interest rates are going up. So if they have to negotiate again, if they have to do a new deal, good luck.
According to many commentators, Britain is not viewed as the place where Meghan's biggest business opportunities would naturally thrive. If that's true, it creates a difficult situation. The future Harry may prefer, and the future that potentially offers the strongest commercial opportunities, could be located on completely different sides of the Atlantic. Keep that point in mind because it becomes even more important as the story develops. Tom Bower has described the couple's situation as an unfortunate crossroads, and that phrase has attracted plenty of attention in recent weeks.
When they left the United Kingdom 6 years ago, this was the plan, a sort of failed deal with Netflix, everybody hating you and being a kind of laughingstock and being a social media influencer, basically. Like that, as I recall, was not the plan, right? The plan was this whole new model of service. They were going to show the Queen didn't have any idea about service. They were going to show her how it was done.
His argument is actually quite specific. He points out that Harry remains a member of the royal family and is fifth in line to the throne. In Bower's view, Harry's sense of purpose was never primarily built around earning money. He grew up inside an institution where status, public duty, and service were central parts of life. Financial success was never supposed to be the main goal. Meghan, according to Bower's interpretation, approached life from a very different direction. He argues that her ambitions have always been strongly connected to professional growth, business opportunities, and building a successful public career. The challenge, he suggests, is that some of those goals may be harder to achieve under certain circumstances.
Sources say that the couple are so unhappy that it resulted in a massive bust-up over their plans this summer. I was the first reporter to reveal the strains in the marriage in Montecito. The mainstream media has been very slow to catch up, but Heat magazine has gone there this week with a front-page cover story revealing the specific argument was about Harry's demands for Meghan to return to the United Kingdom.
Put two people with very different priorities into the same marriage, and those differences may not show up right away. The Netflix money arrives. The public image remains strong. The anniversary photos get posted. Everything appears stable from the outside. But if the easy money slows down, the situation can start looking very different.
And this insider has said the marriage is strong. This is what they said. They love each other. This isn't about divorce or separation. It's about Meghan pushing Harry to adapt to a world where they can't rely on royal status or inherited wealth forever. What, is Meghan deluded or what? Because Harry is never going to become commercially successful. Because beyond his royal meal ticket, there's nothing.
According to Bauer's analysis, the couple may then find themselves pulled in opposite directions. Harry is drawn toward the status and identity that Britain provides, while other priorities may point somewhere else entirely. She appears focused on what California offers her, the opportunity to build projects, pursue business ventures, and shape a future on her own terms. And before anyone dismisses all of this as simply Tom Bauer trying to generate headlines, this is exactly where the conversation gets interesting.
Meghan flipped, and a normal argument turned into a showdown. Tensions are at an all-time high. Now, you'll remember Meghan returned from Geneva, and there was a big song and dance made about the couple's wedding anniversary. I think that was part of the Flood the Zone strategy, which was desperately designed to sort of say, nothing happened, it doesn't matter that only 10 people showed up. But at the same time, perhaps it is because she's even trying to convince herself that things were on track.
The reason people keep paying attention to these claims is not because of Bauer alone. It's because he isn't the only respected commentator pointing in this direction. He's just one of the most outspoken voices saying it. What makes this harder to ignore is that other royal observers who have followed the family for years have arrived at similar conclusions through completely different paths. In fact, one of them was raising concerns long before many of the current debates even existed. That's the part that should grab your attention. Not that someone made a prediction, but that multiple experienced commentators are discussing the same possibility. So if Harry truly wants a stronger connection to Britain, why doesn't he simply make the move?
When he was writing Spare, that's when they were aligned in purpose. They were both trying to put stain on the royal family. They all Harry and Meghan didn't want to show them any grace. They wanted to completely rag on their life in the UK. But now Harry has turned over, and now he, I believe, is feeling very regretful. And now they're no longer aligned in purpose, and they will continue to clash. This is the beginning of many more arguments. And the question then becomes, how long can they sustain the relationship no longer aligned in purpose?
According to various commentators and biographers, the answer may be far more complicated than that. Their view is that the biggest obstacle isn't logistics, security, or even public opinion. They argue that Meghan has little interest in returning to Britain on a permanent basis. Royal biographer Angela Levin discussed this idea in her own commentary.
Can you describe Harry now compared to the Harry you knew? How would you characterize Harry in 2026?
I think he's a nasty, spiteful liar. Thinks only of himself, terrified of Meghan, and that he wants to get the royal family switched out so he can get switched in and give Meghan the best job ever. I think he wants her to be queen. I think I've told you that before. But with Harry, he's determined that everybody thinks that she is as amazing as he does, but he's got it all wrong.
Her interpretation is that Harry and Meghan may still want some form of connection to royal life, but only under conditions that work for them. As Levin put it, they would prefer roles they can influence and shape themselves, rather than traditional positions assigned by the institution. That single idea may explain why the situation remains at a standstill. The monarchy has historically operated in a very structured way. Duties are assigned, expectations are set, and individuals are expected to work within that framework.
She made some very, very poor strategic errors, thinking she could profit from the title without any consequence, without paying the dues. And of course, in the end, I have no doubt there'll come a day when they both lose their titles, and their children too, because they will just be forced to go too far for their own survival, and at that moment, the same will happen to them as what's happened to Prince Andrew.
It isn't an environment where people typically create their own version of the role. According to many reports and accounts over the years, Meghan associates her time in Britain with one of the most difficult periods of her adult life. That creates a striking contrast. One partner may view Britain as a place of identity, family ties, and purpose. The other may associate it with painful memories and experiences she'd rather leave behind.
That's the truth. It's always been nothing. Meghan doesn't want to see people who she either no longer finds useful or people she thinks are not going to go along with the grift anymore. And the royals saw right through her most of the time. And once she could get out, she doesn't want to face them. She's a coward in many ways. She doesn't want to have people, especially when she's interacting with Harry, people who know the real Harry, the Harry before Meghan, and her seeing them interact. Like, she wants this control and she wants to always be the victim. And so she has, I think, in many ways concocted this whole, again, crazy scenario where they're under constant threat so that she has this convenient out to actually see the people that she should.
Think back to their public appearances earlier this year. During engagements and trips abroad, they appeared united, smiling for cameras and presenting a clear image of partnership. From the outside, everything looked polished and coordinated. And by most accounts, they are still capable of doing exactly that when public appearances require it. But public events only last for a few days. What commentators like Levin and Bauer are focusing on is what happens when those appearances end, the cameras disappear, and everyday life resumes. That's where they believe the real differences in priorities begin to show.
I've never seen somebody try so hard to prove that they're not the most unpopular person in the world.
Someone who fled England because she needed her privacy.
Yeah.
Never let us forget that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, it's absolutely astonishing. And then, of course, the publication of all her very top secret wedding photographs.
Oh, yeah.
To mark the 8th anniversary. That as well, absolutely another invasion of her privacy. I mean, she is literally digging and digging and digging, looking for something to get attention. And probably can't understand why there isn't a huge wave of adoration for her. She's actually puzzled why people don't love her, and that makes it even more interesting.
Levin has also discussed reports suggesting Harry has sought a more active role within royal life. And it's important to approach that subject carefully and fairly. King Charles is currently undergoing medical treatment, and that deserves respect rather than speculation. So let's stick to what has been publicly reported. According to these accounts, Harry has been seeking a pathway to greater involvement, while reports suggest the response from the institution so far has remained firmly unchanged.
On one hand, a group of people who are absolutely convinced that King Charles is working behind the scenes via this new Deputy Private Secretary, Theo Rycroft, to try and bring Harry and even Meghan Markle back into the royal fold. The view, Angela, is that they are politically aligned, that King Charles III wants his legacy to be about union, not to be about the divide.
Here's how many commentators see the situation. A marriage can survive disagreements. Couples work through different goals all the time. But things become much harder when two people seem to want entirely different lives in entirely different places. You can't really split the difference when those places are separated by an ocean. Eventually, somebody has to compromise. And according to the reporting and commentary we've seen so far, neither side appears eager to do that.
Buckingham Palace plot to reunite Prince Harry and Prince William is going to fail. This story has really divided the royal community.
Now here's the part that makes this story even more interesting, because it shifts the conversation from what's happening now to what some people claim was predicted years ago. Long before the current speculation, biographer Andrew Lowney spoke about discussions that allegedly took place before Harry and Meghan's wedding.
The feeling generally in Britain is the marriage isn't going to last. Harry will, I'm afraid, still remain with you because his children are there. She kind of got him away from his friends and his relations into another country, and she could control him then, but he was kind of stuck with her.
According to Lowney, some people within royal circles had concerns about the relationship from the very beginning. His claim was that there were private doubts about whether the match would work long-term, and that some believed it could eventually end badly. Of course, there are two ways to look at that. One view is that it's easy for people to make dramatic claims after problems appear. The other is that some observers may have identified challenges years before the public ever noticed them.
And I think that seems to be the feeling here with Harry. He wants to build some bridges. I think his father is keen to reunite with him to see his grandchildren. William clearly is against it. The king is caught between the two brothers, and whatever he does, he's going to upset one of them. And it's a bit of a mess.
Whatever conclusion you reach, it's hard not to pay attention when someone makes a prediction and later points to events that seem, at least from their perspective, to support it. This is also where many people begin questioning the official public messaging that has surrounded the couple for years. Whenever rumors or reports about difficulties surfaced, the response often followed a familiar pattern. The public was repeatedly told that they were stronger than ever, that they remained completely united.
But it's interesting that when there have been occasions where the king could have met Harry, and not least in his recent visit to the States, that didn't happen. And I think there's always a suspicion that Harry will leak any encounter they have, and the story will be sold to the newspapers. So it is a bit of a mess. No one wants a dysfunctional family like that, but I'm afraid that is the story of the royal family. They can't seem to get on with each other.
Representatives have consistently rejected claims that the marriage is in serious trouble, and Meghan herself has publicly spoken about her belief in the strength and longevity of their relationship. And to be fair, nobody outside the marriage truly knows what happens behind closed doors. But there is often a difference between public statements and how outside observers interpret public actions. Over recent months, commentators have pointed to various developments that they believe raise questions. They note that the couple marked 8 years of marriage with a video tribute rather than a major joint appearance. They point to Meghan continuing with her own projects while Harry has repeatedly discussed Britain and his ongoing connections there.
All those things are kind of, again, undermined because of attention being focused on people like Harry and Andrew, when, there is so much good that they can do, but which gets ignored. So my experience is, talking to people, they're not anti-monarchy, but they are anti the monarchy abusing its status in order to make money for itself.
By most accounts, nobody is describing a dramatic public collapse. In fact, many observers see something far more complicated. Rather than open conflict, they describe two people who may still care deeply about each other, while finding themselves pulled toward different visions of the future. It's not a story of chaos, it's a story of distance. According to this interpretation, Harry and Meghan appear to be standing on opposite sides of an important decision, with neither willing to abandon what matters most to them. So where does a situation like that eventually lead? The answer may come sooner than many expect, because an important test is already approaching.
What happened with the Duke of Windsor is he did every so often come back and see his family, as long as his wife didn't come with him, and that we're going to see more of that. We have a sign that Harry may be able to come back and have security paid for by the taxpayer here, which will make him feel safer.
Harry is expected to return to Britain for an upcoming Invictus Games event, a project closely associated with him and one that has earned respect from supporters and critics alike. And when that visit happens, many people will be watching closely to see whether it reveals anything new about the direction this story is really heading. And that's where the biggest question of all comes into focus. It's not whether Harry will attend the event. By all expectations, he will be there. The real question is much simpler and far more revealing. Who, if anyone, will be standing beside him?
Told the couple are at a standoff over their summer. As well as the Balmoral trip, the plan had been for Meghan to join her husband in the UK in July for a one-year countdown event to the 2027 Invictus Games taking place in Birmingham. However, our source says Meghan has now told Harry to go without her. They add Meghan's bust-up with Harry was a big one, and she's digging her heels in. She's told Harry to go to the UK without her, as there was no way she would be joining. She doesn't want to put herself or the kids through the drama.
Tom Bower has been very clear about where he stands on this issue. When asked whether Harry could successfully return in some kind of part-time royal capacity, his answer was blunt. He doesn't believe that's a realistic outcome. And if the biographers who have been discussing this situation are anywhere close to correct, the image many people expect to see this summer could be a quietly emotional one. Harry back in the country, he has often spoken fondly about. Harry working on the project he is most closely associated with. Harry doing something that clearly matters to him, but potentially doing it without Meghan by his side. Of course, nobody knows what will happen until it actually happens, but many commentators believe that Meghan's presence or absence could become one of the biggest talking points of the entire event.
Then you've got the fact that the veterans in Invictus, because it's a special event for injured veterans, military people, served in the army, served in the navy, served in the air force, who have either mental health problems or indeed they've lost limbs, other issues, and they compete at the top level of competition. The problem you've got is those veterans are not happy, because Invictus should be about them and their achievements, but it's about Harry and Meghan. So Invictus is a disaster.
Here's what many observers will be watching closely. If Meghan decides not to attend, some people will argue that it adds weight to the theories that commentators like Bauer and Angela Levin have been discussing for months. If she does attend, others will say it challenges those assumptions and suggest the situation may not be as straightforward as critics claim. Reports have also suggested there have been discussions surrounding summer plans and possible UK visits connected to Invictus-related events. According to those reports, Meghan was expected at one stage to join Harry for activities connected to the countdown toward the 2027 Invictus Games in Birmingham.
And I don't think very long, because you have to look at the fact that Harry is losing out when it comes to his children.
Whether those reports prove accurate or not, July could become an important moment because that's when speculation meets reality. And don't expect answers weeks in advance. Public appearances like these are often managed carefully. Plans can change, announcements can be delayed, statements can be crafted and released at exactly the right moment. But one thing is much harder to manage than a press release: a public event. When the day arrives, people will see exactly who is there and who isn't. The cameras will capture the scene. The photographs will spread across the world, and everyone will be looking at the same image at the same time. That's why these appearances generate so much attention. Rumors can be denied, headlines can be challenged, public statements can be issued, social media posts can present a polished picture. But when a major event takes place, people naturally draw their own conclusions from what they see with their own eyes. So let's return to the word that has hovered over this entire conversation: untenable. When Tom Bauer uses that word, he is not necessarily predicting the end of the marriage, and neither are many of the commentators discussing this story.
I believe is very hurtful to Harry. He is starting to see now that he is missing out and his children are missing out, and that Meghan is controlling everything. And I feel, is feeling very regretful. He is looking at Meghan as someone that is controlling his life completely, despite how he feels. So it's just the beginning for him. It's going to get so much more worse.
Publicly, representatives have rejected claims of serious problems. Meghan has spoken positively about her marriage, and it's entirely possible that the couple will continue proving skeptics wrong for years to come. That possibility absolutely exists. But if you strip away the dramatic headlines, the social media arguments, and the endless speculation, what remains is a much simpler debate. Several well-known royal commentators have looked at the same situation and arrived at broadly similar concerns. Bauer describes what he calls an unfortunate crossroads. Angela Levin argues that Harry and Meghan wanted a level of flexibility and control that was unlikely to fit within the traditional royal structure. Andrew Loney has claimed that concerns existed long before the wedding even took place. The common theme running through all of those observations is not necessarily conflict, it's competing priorities. On one side, there is Britain, family ties, royal connections, and the identity Harry grew up with. On the other side, there is California, business opportunities, independence, and the life Meghan has built there. Add financial pressures, major career decisions, and two very different visions for the future, and it's easy to understand why commentators keep describing the situation as a crossroads. That's the challenge these observers are pointing to. Not a villain, not a dramatic showdown, just two people who may want different things from the next chapter of their lives while trying to make those goals fit together. And now the spotlight turns to July. When that event arrives, what do you think we'll see? Will Meghan be standing beside Harry, putting some of these questions to rest? Or will her absence spark an entirely new round of debate? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm always interested to hear different perspectives. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to Crown Clash. I post new videos every single day.